So would you take a minute to explain to our listeners what's happening in the body with the different stages of fasting?
Okay, so the hard part of this is it entirely depends on that last meal.
Okay.
And I'm gonna give you some really cool examples of new research that shows just how crazy that can be. But let's just go in general. Your last meal was under 1,000 calories. It wasn't all carb or all protein or all fat. It's just a meal like food, right? So what you're gonna find is right after you're done that meal, there's carbohydrates and protein in that meal, so your insulin is gonna be high. And that's a good thing, right? We actually do want that peak after a meal. I know insulin is horrible to everyone and they're wearing their measurements, but in general, you kind of want it to peak and valley. Everything in human sort of physiology kind of peaks and valleys. Your insulin is high, and that is driving the absorption of the nutrients to the areas of your body that needs nutrients. Then at that time, exact same time, your growth hormone, which is really, really important hormone, not just for growth, unless you're listening to this and you're 15, in which case you're growing. But the rest of us, we're not getting any taller. It's mostly a fat loss hormone.
Okay.
It's at like nadir levels, like really, really low. And then your inflammation after a meal is actually fairly high. And again, just like the inflammation after a workout, this is a good thing.
Okay.
Or inflammation when you get sick, a good thing. That first initial burst of inflammation. So you've got high inflammation, you've got high insulin, you've got low growth hormone. You actually, for a lot of the guys, depending on the size of that meal, your testosterone might be a bit lower as well. And your autophagy or your body's turnover, etc., we're not really in that phase. We're kind of at more of a sort out where these nutrients are going to go, then prepare to grow sort of phase.
Okay.
Then you're going to be looking, probably depending on the size of that meal, mostly in that sort of 6 to 12-hour range. It takes you a while to digest food. It's not as quick as some people think. The way humans are set up, we're not like a carnivore cat or something like that can completely digest something in 2.5 hours. It takes us longer. So that 6 hours is that digestion period. 6 to 12, you're starting to get into what we call postprandial. Your body's like, hey, now I got time to deal with all this stuff. So I'm repairing, I'm growing. Insulin is now starting to come down. Your body is now kind of going, okay, like we've got some calories, but not the full amount I need. So I'm gonna liberate a little bit from this body fat here and just kind of make up that difference. So we're going to be still using food calories, just kind of supplementing a little bit of extra stuff into there. Then by that 16-hour mark, now you're starting to see growth hormone. Your body's going, okay, not a lot of calories coming in. I don't know what the machine up there, it must be broken or something. So we need to liberate more fat from our fat stores. Insulin's already kind of going down because it's sitting there going like, food's gone. My job's done, guys. I'm kind of out of here. And growth hormone is now being released. And they're saying, because we got to get this fat out of the fat storage areas and into the blood. And that's what growth hormone really does. At that same time, we have some interesting enzymes that start getting really, really active. So you have HSL, which is hormone sensitive lipase. It's the one that releases fat. But you have its sort of twin, LPL, lipoprotein sensitive sort of lipase. I'm getting mixed up. And it's like, I want the fat, bring it in. Mm-hmm. So as HSL starts getting active in your fat stores, LPL is going to start getting active in other areas like your muscles, especially if you're moving around, you've gone for a walk, you're doing dishes, you're doing something active. So not only is fat getting released now from your fat stores, there's areas of your body that are like, oh, okay, dibs. I call dibs on that. And it's starting to be shunted over that way.
So essentially, fat, like it's releasing fat out of your cells, and your muscles and other parts of your body are like, we need energy because the machine upstairs isn't eating food. And so it takes
exactly
processing. That's so cool.
That's really cool.
Yes. At the same time now, your body's like, hey, the whole like food in's done, the inflammation thing, we don't need it anymore. So we're going from being pro-inflammatory to anti-inflammatory. So slowly but surely now your body's like, all right, well, we got time. Let's kind of start cleaning stuff up. Let's get anti-inflammatory. Let's get autophagy going. Autophagy, which I do. I don't know if you've ever heard some of my early podcasts. I called autophagy for the first year and a half. Yeah. So autophagy is the appropriate way to say it. And it's kind of like a look and see what's broken, and kind of like a Lego set. Break it up and rebuild it the way it's supposed to be built, right? So your 7-year-old built the Lego and you know they did it wrong, so they go to bed and you fix it. That's autophagy. It's your body going around looking for things that need a little fixing. And if it's not fixable, you just break the whole thing up and use it in other areas. So as autophagy starts to go up, inflammation starts to go down as you become more of an anti-inflammatory state. Growth hormone is now up. You're now burning fat. The protein in your muscles, assuming you're an active person, your body's looking around for energy. It's going to your muscles being like, can I use some of that? And your muscles like, no, dude, I need this. I'm using it. You can't have it. Right. So as long as you've been active in the last, I want to say 72 hours, it's like those are spoken for. They can't be touched. So your body's like, fine, I'll go back to the fat and get more of that. Right. So it forces you to grab more fat. And that's predominantly the role of GH. So if we were to make you fast, but block your GH release, then your muscles would be like, yeah, fine, take the protein. I don't care. Right. So GH is kind of that orchestrator getting those things going.
Okay.
And then by the end of that fast, now like your leptin levels, your ghrelin levels, all the hormones are kind of looking at you going like,
ghrelin is the hunger hormone, right?
Yeah.
The hunger hormone, the signal that's like, hey, it's time to eat. We're hungry.
Exactly. It's kind of looking at you now being like, okay, are we broken, or are you just taking a break? So I'm gonna spike up a little bit higher. That has effects on a lot of the hormones that are like neurohormones in your brain. And then just when you're kind of peaking at around that 24-hour range, if you eat, you kind of just start this whole cycle over again. And if you don't eat, that's when you really start going into a system where that renewal, that rebuilding, that anti-inflammatory starts to spread into your immune system and other areas of your body, your macrophages. Okay, how do I explain this? Macrophages are white blood cells that are involved in your health and immunity. Macrophage, big eater. They can be inflammatory, and I think it's M1 state, or anti-inflammatory in M2. They really all start switching over to that anti-inflammatory state. Okay. So your immune system gets involved, and then the longer you start fasting, now ketosis, which is sort of using an alternative fuel source, happens. Those ketones start affecting your brain as well. And then we start getting into, outside of my expertise of short-term fast, and you start getting into that long-term fast where your body's going, okay, we're doing this for the long haul. Something's gone on, right? It's winter out. There's a famine. We're going to really start ramping up our ability to survive. And that's a whole host of other effects. But for me, it's that really getting that GH to peak, getting that insulin low, getting that anti-inflammatory effect, and a little bit of extra autophagy. And then you eat again. So that was sort of my process. The main things I'm most interested in.
Yeah. I love that. And it's so incredible, even in just that 24-hour period, what's happening in the body.
It's amazing.
And so it's kind of, once I learned all of this, because again, it was like very natural for me to be at least 5 days a week doing a 16 to 18-hour window of no eating. And then once I learned this, I started trying to incorporate once a week a 24 to 36 hour. And kind of the thing for me was like, if I could get to 24, and then I kind of check in and be like, can we get to 36? Like, we got this.
Yeah, it depends on how you feel, right?
I ended up getting to 48, relatively easily. I tell you what, between 24 to 36, I felt invincible.
Yes. Yeah.
Whoo, let's go, world. Like, it was crazy. And for somebody, I've had issues with my gut microbiome. So learning what fasting was contributing to my gut health.
Yeah, we didn't even touch on that. Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit? Because
it's more, again, same thing. They're so dependent on not just the foods you eat. Like I'm always marveling at how much smarter you are than you are. So your brain, your gut, just so much smarter than you are, right? And they're constantly, we are incredibly adaptive and resilient. So your body's doing nothing all day long but reading input.